really cool topic though, because even personally, Adam and I have been passive investors in over 18 deals over the last 10 years. And passive investing is a huge part of our portfolio. And the reason I love it is because you don't have to do any work. Right? That's the best part about it, yes. And so I am really, really honored to bring in some amazing syndicators, people who put together groups of investors to make investments in assets that are bigger than we can buy ourselves. So, for example, a multifamily, a large 200-unit apartment complex, a large industrial complex. Those of us in this room, we probably can't afford those on our own, but if we come together with other investors, we can be a part of that ownership group. And so it's a really, really powerful way of investing, and for us, it's definitely always going to be a portion of our portfolio. So I'm going to pass it over to my husband, Adam Roberts. He's going to moderate for us today, because I'm going to be one of the panelists. And so let's kick it off. Adam.
Give us a little bit of your background and your experience and what you're currently doing today.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Again, my name's Jeremy Mercer. We actually had to change our names to Battle Realty.
So we got that.
See this letter and that. So we run a industrial platform here in Dallas-Fort Worth. I started off with property management 20 years ago on the Class B and C industrial side. Moved to brokerage, was a street broker in industrial for 13 years, and I still broker here and there, but kind of got tired of that, started buying industrial. We've always bought industrial along the way, but with our this broker. But then we just moved to making a real platform behind it, and we have about 1.3 million feet of industrial assets, and we buy in the Texas Triangle and Oklahoma City, and we buy mainly Class B and C assets, sometimes Class F, in my opinion, some of these things. But we will buy small bay business parks, and then we're really good at the single tenant. 30,000 foot building on 5 acres of land for like an equipment room, storage or something like that. So those good, and a lot of that just lends to my brokerage background. I rep a lot of those type of companies back in the day. So think about like a Sunbelt Rentals or United Rentals, facilities like that, some kind of yard component. But yeah, that's what we do. So
it's triple net, right? Triple net, they use all triple net. So we can get into that in a little bit, but good stuff. Catherine.
Hi, my name's Catherine Schmaltz. I'm here in Dallas, local. Share balances, but yeah, I live in Dallas, and we specialize in multifamily B and C class. Kind of my background is when I graduated from college, I worked for a company that owned and operated about 5,000 units. Worked with the owner, and then learned a lot about project management, property management. I worked for the kind of sister company that brought in materials to help kind of facilitate rehab, so I kind of learned like the background construction side. From there, I kind of worked with Brian Amos, who did the physical due diligence, so I learned all about the roofs, plumbing, electrical, all those type of things. While I was working with him, me and my business partner that I'm still business partners with today, we're flipping houses. Flipped over 100 houses. He's kind of in the kind of like underwriting finance guy, and then I'm kind of construction property management side. And we've known each other since college, when we're husband's best friends. So while we were flipping houses, we're trying to figure out how to scale. From there, we got into multifamily. So that's kind of our background. And then since 2018, we joined a mentorship program. That's how I met Adam and Emily. Brad Sumnat. He specializes in multifamily, how to buy, how to syndicate all the things. And so since 2018, we bought 6 properties, went full cycle, which bought and sold 4 of them. And we specialize in B and C in Texas. We've owned stuff in Dallas, San Antonio, and La Bay. So that's kind of my background.
Awesome. So my name is Emily Cortright. I've been with the office about 11 years, and the whole time I've been in real estate investing in some way or another. I started with single family flips and rentals, did about 25 flips, had 11 rentals that I self-managed, and then the market started to shift, and similar to Catherine, it was around the same time, and I said, you know what, I need something that's scalable, that gets me into a business owner role, and so we jumped into multifamily. And so we've been doing multifamily syndications the past 7 years. We've put together 8 large properties averaging 200 units each, and we've sold 2 of those. But about a year and a half ago, the multifamily market kind of took a pause as interest rates started shooting up. And so at that point, I was part of the KW Wealth Mastermind, and one of the big topics that was being talked about was private lending and becoming the lender. And so for about the past year and a half, Adam and I have essentially shifted my focus because I was full-time acquisitions for multifamily. So I said, instead of sitting here and twiddling my thumbs for the next who ever knows how long, I'm going to get into the notes industry. And so private notes, mortgage notes, but we are really focusing on private lending. And so we have over $2 million in private loans out right now. And so that is my current focus in our business. And Adam and I are both full-time investors.
Cool, thank you. My name is Jonah Hall. I live in Dallas as well. My background is 100% self-storage, other than political science. Before that, I was in politics. So we developed a unique model for managing assets. So we're actually operators and business people first. So self-storage is a business, unlike a triple net asset. It's like really hands-on. You're the operator. We are daily dealing with that. So my office looks very different. I've got a development team, an operations team, a construction team, kind of all in-house, so that we can go develop these assets. Our goal is to take it to be the premier company in the country, to really own several hundred locations before probably rolling up to a REIT or becoming a REIT, one of those things in 10, 12 years. We started in 2020 with just a partner, and have done 20 deals across 3 states, 10 in Texas, 9 in Missouri, 1 in Oklahoma. Most of those were conversions, so that's what the market gave us during COVID. Self-storage did really, really well, I guess, if not being a look at it. If you're a buyer or seller, you might argue that during COVID. If you were a buyer, it was not a good time for self-storage. So we were looking at conversions. When I say a conversion, I think your local grocery store that went out of business when Walmart came to town. Big 40, 50, 60,000 square foot box that somebody wants anymore. We would convert that into Class A climate control storage. We've done that 18 out of the 20 times, so that was kind of our prime grade thing. And I'm actually in progress of kind of selling my half of the company, and so I'm syndicating still, but I'm syndicating with some other partners. So kind of, if you have interest, I mean, maybe under a slightly different name, but that's what I've been doing, and that's what I plan to do probably forever. I enjoy it. Very good. Okay. Well, we dove in a little bit there as to what each of us do in the investment space. I'd like to know, given what you're doing and what asset vehicles and investment vehicles you guys focus on, from the investor's perspective, because not only are you guys all operators, but you also invest in your own deals, right? As an investor, what do you like about it? What speaks to you from the investment perspective and your specific investment vehicle asset class?
Well, for me, it's just familiarity. It has to begin with, right? I've brokered it forever. I understand it. I know all the brokers involved in it. But a lot of our facilities, I just kind of know how to go work the business plan. Like I know where the tenant's going to come from, most likely by the time I close, but don't have them by the time I close. So that's usually a big component of it. Converting them to triple net leases too is great because it kind of insulates you from, not completely, but the insurance costs have been a big thing here lately.
Yeah, maybe explain triple net.
So the difference between triple net and gross lease is essentially the gross lease is the amount that the tenant's going to pay all in, but it's broken out into the base rent, and then which is the net rent, and then the taxes, insurance, management, CAM, any operating expenses go along with the property. It always was kind of funny to me in representing tenants. Everybody quoted us in net rental rates. Well, when you hear a net rental rate, that's what the landlord is netting and putting in their pocket, which the tenant doesn't care about, right? Tenant cares about the overall total cost. But at the end of the day, on the triple net deal, the good thing is that you can, you're not locked into the expenses essentially. So correct me if I'm wrong, but multifamily, if you get a massive insurance uptick, you can't go immediately just hand that to your tenants, right? We just handed the bill. You know, it's like, hey, sorry, we're working on this. Here's the bill. Taxes go up. Sorry, that's your portion. And then at the end of the day, we're primarily just covering the roof walls and foundation. So if the roof leaks, we'll fix it. If the foundation fails, we'll fix it. But otherwise, don't call us. So, but for us, it's just our deal flow is very focused in that industrial world. We're tied into it very well. So it's we see everything off market before it comes out. So we have a chance to evaluate it, make a decision pretty quick, and move on if it doesn't work. So that's what we've kind of built our platform on. So
yeah, and I'll just give everybody kind of an investor's viewpoint too. Like I said, we invested with most of these folks, and Jeremy's right. I have multifamily holdings, okay, and in the and I have industrial holdings. And the industrial stuff is the only thing that continues to distribute cash flow to investors today. To your point, insurance, taxes, all sorts of expense increases on the residential side has chewed away almost all of the bottom line net profits for the investor. So more reason to be diversified, right? So I think it speaks highly to that neighborhood right there. Catherine, what about you? Multifamily. What you talked a little bit about B and C class multifamily, different markets around Texas. From an investor's perspective, what do you like about multifamily?
The reason why I really like multifamily is you can force appreciate. You can raise rent $25 each unit. So say you have a property of 100 units, you raise rent $25 a unit times 100 times 12. Oh, that one? And then you basically improve your income by a lot. And then NOI is basically what valuations are based on is NOI, which is income minus expenses. So if you could raise income by $25 a unit by 100 units, you can really add a lot of value to your property. You can also do things like, the reason why I like it is, that's my background, but also you can add carports. That's another $25 that you could potentially ask somebody to use. It's something that they value. You know, it's hot in Texas, it's good to have a car and meet there. So like, there's other things like you could do bulk pricing for cable, which most people pay about $80 if they just do it on their own. You can do a bulk pricing and then give them a little bit of a discount. So like there's things that you can make money on, but also give residents something that is valuable to them. So it makes sense for them, and then you raise your valuation for when you sell, and then add more money for passive, for basically the distributions. So that's basically the main reason I like it.
Yep, and fundamentally, and it's the same for all residential, right? A roof over the head. Right. Fundamentally, it makes sense from the peasant perspective for that reason. So that's good stuff.
It's also filled in business too, because you have 100 people, 100 families living there, and so you get to actually touch all the lives of all the 100 people. So you can do resident events and stuff like that, and you're actually making difference at the property, which is one of the reasons why I actually like it. Maybe not investors, but it's filled in business for me.
That's a good move. Yeah.
And it has great tax management.
Ah, yes, I missed that part.
Yeah.
We'll hit on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Emily?
Okay, so yeah, about 2 years ago or so, I read a book called The Banker's Code. And that was a really big mindset shift for me that taught me that there is a place in the world for the investors and the lenders, the bankers. And we made a decision at that time to be both. Like on some investments, I want to be the investor, but on some investments, I want to be the lender. And in a lot of ways, the lenders is one of the least positions of risk. They have low leverage. They have, there's equity in the deal, and so that is the approach that we take in our note investments. Whether it's a private loan, whether it's a mortgage note, we make sure that we are at a much lower amount, 70% or less of what the property is actually worth, and we feel like we have a safe position in that point where if we had to take back the property,
our experience in flipping houses and managing our rentals and managing real estate investments would allow us to make an exit on that property if we did have to take it back. So that's what we have come to love about mortgage note investing and private lending. So it's been a great addition to our portfolio.
Yeah, I think it's true. And, you know, maybe y'all have some experience with this as well, but when times get tough, the lenders always win, right? Generally speak. So, Jonah, yeah.
What was the name of that? Was it the
The Banker's Code.
the thing?
Jonah, so self-storage, you talked a little bit about the specific kind of niche you're filling with the A-class big box vacancies, but is that the only thing you focus on in self-storage? And okay, if not, what else and what do you like about it?
That might be the only feel-good thing I have. Is that on the flip side of that coin, I don't have to deal with tenants or toilets or any of that stuff, and so I like that for self-storage a lot. It's really just 4 metal walls and a door. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The two things I would pitch a large investor typically, and that, you know, this may not be the passive investor, this may be for like a JV partner, but just to give a context for this, is self-storage is a really mom and pop industry. It's probably still well above 50% mom and pops. You go into multifamily, hospitality, industrial, and they're mostly institutionalized. They're getting bought up or managed at least by massive corporations. Self-storage, if you combine the 4 major REITs, the ones we see around here, Public, CubeSmart, Extra Space, now let's call it U-Haul, Life got bought. That represents somewhere around 20-25% of the market. I mean, they're really not. They seem huge because we live in Dallas, but you go to a lot of places in the country, they're not even there. So there's a lot of opportunity at this point. You can go buy these up, operate better than a mom and pop can. So we like that. The second piece that I really, really like is it's really old school, like 80s technology in most facilities. And so you go modernize it a little bit. You're adding not only conveniences for the tenant, but you're creating efficiency for your bottom line. So we actually go as far as every single roll-up door has a digital lock that you open with your phone. We've automated the properties to the point that someone rents, moves in, sets Spotify, goes home, and doesn't talk to us. Love. That's one of my favorite things about it. And then let's see. Lastly, I guess would just be cash flow. They're very cash flow oriented businesses. So when times are tough, as long as you can over leverage yourself and you're a good operator, you'll survive the rough times and you'll go right back into good times. So I really like the industry. It's proven itself a lot longer than I've been alive. It's been proven itself for many decades. There's pretty tough times. It'll be the primary thing in our investment for a long time.
Yeah. That's great. Right now, I want to talk a little bit about competitive advantage because as investors, right, we have a lot of options. Generally speaking, if we're active in the space and we know, folks we can invest our funds with, there's options out there. However, it's always important to invest with good operators, people who've been experienced in doing what they're doing and have what I consider to be a competitive advantage in the space, right? Because we're talking about investment returns here. And so, Jeremy, I'm not going to answer the question for you, but I'm curious. Last year, Emily and I were lucky enough to come in and witness one of your team meetings, right? Where you bring the team around, you go through your process, how you're buying properties. And I was very impressed, just not only with the way you built your team, but the process you have in underwriting deals and quick yes or no, like, yeah, we're going after it, or no, we're not. So I viewed that kind of as your competitive advantage beyond your decades of experience. So maybe talk to us a little bit about how you built your team and your process.
Yeah. So my team is, kind of, a lot of it's me and Will, but Will, my partner, he came from a company called Whole Bunch they run about 100 million feet of industrial here, and he ran their insurance platform for it. And so he came and joined me about 2.5 years ago. But we're very focused. Well, we're very focused on lead generation. Lead generation is the core of what we do, and what that kind of does is it allows us the ability to say no, because just wait till next week, they'll be bored. So we're very into tracking our data on how we're making cold calls to brokers, owners, and all that, and tracking all that we really track weekly deal flow. and that's something we look at a lot. So just to kind of give you some, everybody's talked about the market being very spread on the bid and ask right now between buyers and sellers, right? And so by tracking our own data, we can kind of view our own mini market. So just to give you some examples, every week, right now, we currently have about 100 million in assets submitted to us a week to review. And that's good or bad, whatever, but that's our deal flow. We're brokers sending us deals. And we will real quickly look at it and be like, oh, hell no. Oh, yeah, okay, that's good. Go to the next step, next step, next step. And then, as you saw, like on our sales force, it just the dollars, we track how many dollars we underwrite, how many we offer on and all that. But but the good thing for stats for us is that we just kind of know what our metric is. So, and then this will give you a representative of market, at least in industrial. I think it's probably the same across all asset classes. But like in 22, we reviewed 1.25 billion of deals across 221 assets. We offered on 250 million of it, and we bought 56. Last year, we reviewed 2.5 billion in assets, over 444 assets. We offered on 501 million, and we bought 29. So we saw twice as many deals. We offered on twice as much. We bought half as much. So, but what and we used to see about 40 to 50 a week. Now we see about $100 a million a week deals. So what that does for us is just wait till next week. There'll be another deal. We don't have to do this deal. These brokers need to do that deal. That seller needs to do that deal, but we don't need to do this deal. So it gives us. I think that's our advantage. Is I think we see more than most other industrial operators. Or we're pretty. We're probably neck and neck with like two other guys, but. In certain markets, we're probably the first phone call. But we've also done a very good job of creating the lens for the broker to be like, this is our kind of building. Don't bring me a Class 8 cell wall building because there's no money in it right now. Bring me this junky building on 5 acres that we can do something with. And so I think we've done a good job of developing the lens for the brokers to know what to bring us. So.
Yeah, and sometimes it's about the deals you don't do, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So perfect. Catherine, so High Five Multifamily, you and Jimmy, right? You mentioned you kind of fulfill different roles in the business. You have your swim lanes. As a team, what gives your group a competitive advantage for the investors?
Well, like he was saying, Jimmy is kind of the underwriter, kind of deal flow person talking to the brokers. We both talk to the brokers, but then I'm kind of like the operations CapEx person. But I think the thing that brings us competitive advantage is we've been doing this for a while. We've flipped 100 homes. We've both been in real estate basically since we graduated from college. I've been in this space working with investors since 2007, I believe. So I've kind of seen different things throughout it. I have the due diligence background, so I can walk into a property and know exactly what the CapEx number is going to be. And I think that the brokers appreciate that because sometimes a lot of people walk in and then they go under contract and retrade because they're like, oh, wow, I didn't see this huge CapEx problem here, but we come in realistic. And I think the brokers really like working with us because what we say we're going to do is kind of where what happens and where we are when we go through the due diligence. We're like, yeah, we saw that. We're good. So I think that really works with the brokers. We have a lot of relationships with the brokers as well. Multifamily is kind of stagnant right now. Like Emily was saying, there's really nothing really going on right now. The only people that are selling are people that need to sell and they don't want to sell, so they're trying not to sell right now. But me and Jimmy have been staying strong on multifamily. We've been underwriting on the deals. We're still going to lunches with the brokers, still following up with brokers. So I think that we are getting deal flow right now, where maybe some of the people that haven't been so in the trenches and kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit might miss some of these deals that we're still trying to underwrite. So I think that would be a competitive advantage once the floodgates open back up and there's properties to actually buy that make sense. It's done.
Yeah, that's good. And Emily, in your note investing world.
So I would say one of our competitive advantages is it's the relationships we've built in in the Metroplex and across the country through our other masterminds, through KW agents, because what we were finding is every week I'm getting texts from people like, hey, do you have somebody that could help me with this private loan? Or, hey, my client needs a private loan, or so-and-so is flipping a house and they need a private loan. And it just became a natural evolution to, well, why don't we have experience putting together investor funds for multifamily? Why don't we put together investor funds for private lending? And so it became a natural progression because of the relationships we've built throughout Keller Williams, throughout the mastermind groups. And so we consistently have deals coming to us to private lend on, and it's just a matter of having the right capital behind it, because it's not all the time that we have the money ourselves to deploy, so we pair some of our money with investor money to do the private lending deals. And so it, like I said, a natural evolution just based on the relationships we've built and people coming to me and saying, hey, who do you know that could do this private loan? And Adam and I looked at each other and like, well, we could do this one. So it's that's been a cool transition. Really joy.
And Jonah, now I'm getting to know your business more and more. I told y'all he's the only one I haven't invested with because we just met, right? But really have branched out in several different aspects. But overall, it sounds like you've got a team. It sounds like you've built a really robust team. Tell us a little bit about that, maybe more, and then give us your competitive advantage.
Well, I'd say there's one of the competitive advantages anyway, so I'll start there. Vertical integration is kind of a key buzzword people will talk about, but we are as integrated in-house as we can be right now for our size. We're sourcing deals, we're raising capital, we're developing and titling, constructing, managing, doing all the accounting, doing all the investor relations, everything in-house. That's the advantage when you're small because you can be nimble. You can make decisions quickly, like these guys are making decisions quickly. Our competition when we're trying to buy an asset versus build one is typically pretty fierce. We may be competing with a REIT, we may be competing with some very well-backed, private equity-backed operators that have been growing. So I think that team all in one area where we're making decisions always, and we're really on top of it. Everybody knows what everyone's job is. Really gives us competitive advantage for sure. Most operators are out there. I say operators. Most syndicators. I start there. Really only syndicates. Not all, but in this industry, you'll see a lot of them put a deal together and they flip it to a REIT to manage, and they get out as fast as they can. We're long term people. We want to hold these things. We want to have a portfolio of 200-300 assets. I'd say there's at least two. I'm probably forgetting one. Major competitive advantages. One is tech. We are actually sort of a technology company. That's kind of how we started before we started getting development or raising capital. This industry, like I said, was very old school, and we were the kind of, I won't say the first, because I know a couple people looked before me, but we took it to a new level with the tech, and we're really automating during COVID, and it was really needed. We probably, at one point, a decade ahead, and now we're a couple years ahead because everyone had to adapt. It was a new way of doing it. Suddenly contactless rentals was a thing, right? Everybody didn't want to touch each other. And so everybody figured out the minimal version of that. But that really set us apart, has allowed us to get really close, kind of get our foot in the door with the CEO of every vendor and tech company for years. So we're like their primary feedback loop on features and new things we roll out. And I think that's given us a pretty big name in the industry, allowed me to go out and speak in big national events and tell people how we're doing things. So that's been really fun. And then the third, I think, is probably education. I am, like I said, I'm actually selling part of my company. I'm going to be collaborating with some new people. And this group is probably taking us even further than we did. But one of our things, we really wanted our investors to know what they were investing in and how it worked. And so we're trying to go above and beyond, not only in our reporting, but if they wanted to grab coffee and understand something, we're going to take that extra time. And that's a lot of work, don't get me wrong. It requires investor relations team if you want to start doing that, right? To be able to field questions and really keep my ties as valuable as possible and only needed when needed kind of thing. But I'm partnering with another group. I'll throw out his name, AJ Osborne, and pretty well known. Probably the best self-storage most renowned name. He's got the biggest podcast in the industry, and go look it out. But his team is based out in Idaho, and working with him on some projects, maybe collaborating and some other big names in the industry. And so that's kind of pulling the best of two worlds, I think. They do the large assets and large MSAs, they do the automation and the smaller assets and smaller MSAs, and together we can pretty much tackle any aspect of the industry. So it's pretty cool.
Very good. Very good. Let's go through some case studies. I think this is a great way to learn, by the way, is to hear an operator talk about some of their projects, some of their success stories, and how they execute their business plan. So I'll start with you, Jeremy.
Sure. Here's a property we bought in Oklahoma City. We own the building across the street. I got the building across the street. We bought it direct off of Oilfield Services Company because they were shutting that location down. And then I always eyed this building. There's another Oilfield Services Company in it. It's a lot larger asset. This is 35,000 feet on 17 acres of yard. So I knew with these kind of assets, you usually have a pretty big operator that's going to come into them, because someone that has enough assets to fill up 17 acres usually has a pretty sizable balance sheet behind them. So I knew, but I knew this was probably the only one we were going to be on the only property about this size of the market. But and as soon as it hit the market, I knew it was a deal that, if there's any residential real estate agents, don't take offense to this, but a residential real estate agent was listing it, so they really didn't know the pricing. And I saw the price, I was like, that's underpriced, bad. So we jumped on it, got under contract immediately, went through due diligence. I knew we'd have to find a tenant for it, but I was fine buying it spec, and we ended up leasing it to Ward Caterpillar, who's the like Holt Cat is the local one for this region. Warren is the Oklahoma City, Midland, Lubbock area region cat dealer. And I didn't even ask for their financials. But then we ended up selling the building to Warren about a year later. So we went into this deal. We stabilized this deal to an 8.5% yield on cost. We paid 5.2 for it, and then we sold it to Warren for an 8.2, and a year later. So but
What was the best of return?
it's a 74% IRR, 2.26 equity multiple, in about, I guess, I don't know, it's probably about 18 months. We bought it 6 months downtime, and then got it leased after that. So, very conventional. That's investor level.
But that is phenomenal. What year did that take place?
We sold it earlier this year to the.
Wow, that is phenomenal. And
Just had a quick question. I mean, over the last 6-7 years, and you see that's where else is going up. And
Sure.
so, I mean, I guess it's like creative investment and building it and leasing.
I don't build.
Well, I know, I mean, a majority of these are these full. If you go up and down Bellland or any Great 30 or 161, I mean, I guess I'm just kind of curious.
Okay, well, that's new stuff, and that's what I was saying. Like, I've developed the lens of broker. Don't bring me that, because there's not a lot of money in it right now. I'm not capitalized the way to do something like that. And what you got to understand about development like that is development is never done because of supply and demand. It's done at the cost of capital, and money's been cheap. And all those projects were capitalized when money's in the threes and the fours, and developers were fee developers. And now big tail wall buildings like that are sucking wind right now because there's no tenants for them right now. So, but what we liked about this building right here was the fact that it was 17 acres. You had Niagara's next door facility at 400,000 feet, and I was in the dirt for $7 a foot. So it's like $7 a foot on just pure dirt is cheap. I've got a fully developed building yard, fence, paved, stabilized, everything. I mean, I think we probably had 20 grand in TI for this thing. The big thing about this one, and something we're very driven on, is basis. We kind of say around the office is that yield is temporary, basis is forever. If I have the right basis in a deal, I can get out of anything. But if you buy yield, you get smoked. So, but yeah, I mean, industrial in Texas is pretty good, under sub 500,000 feet,
And for the vintage you're operating in, 70s, 80s, 90s, maybe some 2000s, but it's mostly existing buildings that have been around for decades.
Yeah.
In high density areas, right?
Right, yeah, so it's already there, I don't have to go through the development process, all that. So we're usually buying a building, some scenario, maybe a short-term lease back with the seller, or they're out and it's vacant. You know, if we get it vacant, it's probably better, honestly, because we can touch the income quicker, so, yeah. Sure.
Thanks. And Catherine, what about your case study? I want to know if this is one I've been investing in.
But jump right out of Lake Pool. Thanks. Okay, so this is Lubbock Lakewood. This is a property that we bought in 2019. We actually bought it on a reverse 1031, which I won't go into that, but we sold the property and we used the money that we made on another property to buy this property. But this property is in Lubbock, so me and my husband and my business partner all went to Texas Tech, so we know Lubbock pretty well. And we, at the time, we already had a property in Lubbock, so we knew all about the market. So this is our second property we bought in Lubbock. We bought it for $3.9 million. It's 120 units, and we sold it for $8.2 million. But the story's a little bit weird. So we, when we looked at this property, we liked the location, and it had a ton of green space. And one of the things is that a lot of properties is not full of green space, it's full of parking lots and just so really a green space like this, I don't think you can really see a picture of how much green space there is, probably in the next picture. But you could see that pergola that we added. It was screaming out kids, families, green space, which is amenity you don't ever get. So anyways, we really liked the deal, put it under contract, but it was a tire property, so we just assumed we would just put a new sign, we would put some amenities, it was full of kids, with playground, and it was missing laundry room, it was missing like laundry, dryers. It's just very dingy. So also they didn't use computers. So anyways, when we got under contract, we kind of dove deeper into the deal. And what we found is that they didn't use computers at the property. Like he was saying, mom and pop, but usually there's not that many mom and pops. This was a true mom and pop, 20-year owner. He was a dentist, self-managed. And so when we asked the manager, how do you get the name out? They said, oh, we're on page 97 of this random magazine in Lubbock. Like nobody knew about this deal. So we automatically saw, wow, we could just put it on the internet and just market it and we can raise rents quite a bit. So that's what we did. Another thing that we realized, luckily we were working with a relationship bank, just a local bank that we use on some of our other deals. When we took over the property, they didn't have a rental. Everything was in the manager's head. And when they paid rent, they just wrote it down on a piece of paper. So they didn't really know what the rents were. And so it was a little bit convoluted. Also, the leasing agent, when we asked her what was the occupancy, she said it was 98. We're like, okay, great. When we walked the units, we realized it was actually 76% occupied. She thought what 98% meant was of the ready units, 98% of them were leased, not out of all the units on the property. So luckily we were using a relationship bank and they said, okay, and we trust you guys, because we wouldn't have gotten financing with this type of deal. But luckily that was actually a good thing because they were only a few $100s ready to be leased. So we automatically bumped rents $100, $150 just day one because we put our property on market, or not on the market, but just like on, just on Google, So we did some minor things. We pretty much made the pool nice. I don't know what all you like. Oh, okay. So like I said, the laundry room was outdated, the office was outdated, all the signage was outdated. So we just did some minor things. Those are some things that are just pretty low hanging fruit.
And did you keep the management company?
Yeah, there was none.
There was.
Yeah, the manager actually had a heart attack during due diligence because we were asking questions that he didn't know the answer to because he was just so old. So it was actually pretty sad. But he's okay. He's okay. But yeah, I mean, so we got a professional management company. We charge late fees. One of the things he did is he knew when everybody got paid, so let them pay whenever they got paid, which is not typical for a professional management. So little things like that, just putting it onto Google, and then 3 years later, we sold it for $8.2 million and made, so in 34 months, the total return was 4.82x.
That's like the biggest real estate return I've seen.
After his, geez,
That's just bigger.
I thought you said it was 6x.
No,
Mine
you're.
was at 2.26.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But I think it's worth.
And these are just our home runs.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's phenomenal.
yes.
So in other words, operations, I mean, you walk in, you're like, wow, I could literally just turn the operations around and make an acceptable return.
Yeah, just putting professional management company. Most of the time, usually we do a lot of value add, we do a lot of amenities, we spend a lot of CapEx money. This one really, it was just operational, it was just management play. And then obviously we wanted to make it look nicer and updated some of the things, but we didn't have to do much on this one.
And I think that speaks to the forced depreciation, right? And across the board, right, when you're talking income producing real estate, it's not like a CMA, right? It's not like the properties are based on, what the neighbor's house sold for. It's, hey, my property makes more money than your property, so my property's going to sell for, and that's exactly what you executed there. So that's awesome. Emily,
Awesome.
let's hear your case study.
Just a quick, because even for our deals, we always say this too, like past performance doesn't always guarantee future performance. We've all got home runs, and so, but it is a testament to how you can achieve phenomenal returns in an asset class where you don't have to do any work. So I know we all kind of kick ourselves. We wish we invested more years and years ago, and when the market was skyrocketing. But a lot of the asset classes are still performing at great returns. So let's so my sector is a little bit different because private lending is a little bit different than the growth. I would say that self-storage, multifamily, and industrial, they are growth investments. So you put your money in with the intention of it growing 2x, for example. With private lending, it's different. And like I mentioned, Adam and I have both in our portfolio. We have some growth investments, and we have some, I would call it just cash flow or set return, not I would say guaranteed, but like set return investments. And so this is, we have two different offerings right now. We have a 13-month note, which is the shortest that we've ever offered, and that funds the private lending deals that I'm getting texts about every week. So 13-month and 3 years, and you can see the different interest rates there. The 3-year one comes with quarterly interest-only payments. And so if you need a little bit of cash flow, we do have a few investors on that one, but most of them choose the 13-month. And again, like I mentioned, we do both. We do growth investments, and then we do some shorter term with like known exit timeline investments in our portfolio. So I'm gonna give a quick example. So a 13-month promissory note, and this is just basic math, but we have investors at 100,000 that are getting 8%. And so after the 13th month, if we were to pay after the 13th month, they would make $8,667. That would be the interest that they would make, plus they would get their original money back. At the $50,000 level, that would be a 7% return, so you make $37.92. So these numbers are not nearly as high as the growth numbers you've seen, but they are much shorter-term fixed timelines. So some of our multifamily deals we bought 2 years ago, we might hold them another 3 years. And so some of the equity investments, you don't know if they're going to be 3-year, 5-year, longer term. These are more known investment planes. And then I want to give one example. This was actually the most recent one we funded. I wired money yesterday for this one, and this is a house in Birmingham, Alabama. And so we do private loans here in the DFW market, and we do it in Birmingham because we have a very, very close colleague there that's flipping houses. So this one's in Birmingham. It's the most recent one we did though. And our private loan to this investor who's going to flip the house was $182. They bought the house for $186, so we funded just under the amount that they bought. They're going to put in all the money for the rehab, which is about $50,000,
and the house is worth around 325 when it's done. And so when I talk about being at a really safe basis, this is a really great example of the basis that I want to be at. I want to be in the property at 182, and if something happens and I have to take it over, at least the house is going to be worth 325 when I'm done with it. And so this is, like I said, the most recent example of the one that we did. And this could, for example, this was funded by an investor that did 100, one investor that did 50, and then we put in 32. And so this is just kind of a case study or an example of the private loans that we are putting together with a combination of our investor funds and our funds.
Yeah, so different types of investments, different levels of risk, obviously, right? So that's great. And Jonah, let's go through your self-storage case study.
Well, I don't actually have a case here. For the main reason is transition. So I will speak publicly, verbally about any of our deals that we've done, and I can speak about the ones I'm collaborating with AJ on. I bring some information we want for. But the key difference here is we do underwrite a way to understand what it would be like to flip after 3 years, 5 years. But the actual goal here is to hold long term. So we structure our investments a little bit different for the limited partner, the investor. We want them to get basically 100% of the cash flows coming off the property until they get their initial investment back, and then we start getting paid. So we're really trying to make sure you guys get your money back first, then we can make money. But the long-term hold piece is you're going to have equity in the asset forever, or at least until we actually are ready to sell 10 years, 15 years from now. In which case, and this is the part that I get excited about, it's not in the underwriting, it's icing on the cake. But when you build a large portfolio, any kind of asset, there's typically a compression of the cap rate exit. And so when you go build a single asset, it may sell at a 6 cap. And you sell a portfolio of 10 or 15 assets, and it may sell at a 5 cap. That 100 basis points is incredibly valuable. That will increase the overall return by a lot. Obviously, we, again, don't underrate that, but that's our ultimate goal, and that's what we want to go build, is a large-scale exit. Everyone gets to participate in the other side. In the meantime, there's a prep. You guys are getting a preferred return of all cash coming off the deal, and then in most cases, 100% of the cash flow until you get your initial investment back. But we do structure them differently. I've done other things. I've done JP partnerships where it's like one investor and they're cutting a $15 million check. Very different in that kind of structure. But for the ones where we're taking $50,000 investments, $100,000 investments, or $250,000 to $500,000 investments, they're structured more like this. Cash out to the investor first, and then we split cash and going forward. What else do you want to know? Set that up. Oh, case study. I guess I'll throw out a deal we've done. So let's just go on to South Lake. We did a little, you guys know Fred's. Fred's went out of business 10 years ago. They went bankrupt. There's a Fred's in Bridgeport that I bought. This is my first project on my own. So this was 2019. 18,000 square feet on 3 acres. The building had been vacant for several years because it was going through bankruptcy. The bank finally called me back and said, hey, you can buy it now. Pay $500,000 for the building, whatever that works out to, $28 a foot or something. We put in another $25 a square foot, probably more like $35 now, to develop climate-controlled self-storage on the inside, and then another 50 or 60 units outward, non-climate drive-up in the parking lot. That facility, so we'd have somewhere between 1.1 and 1.3 in total now after all exterior upgrades. That building is, in today's cap rate, which I'll throw one thing out here before I talk about that. If you look at self-storage investors over the last few years, a lot of them are quoting these crazy exits. Self-storage had some very crazy exits in the last 3 years. So don't base your investing decisions based off people who've exited portfolios in the last 3 years. Look at their track record for longer than that. There are people who literally just got money because the market just did all the work for them. And that's what we're seeing now. It's a lot of people that bought pre-COVID are realizing now that interest rates are higher and their loans are coming due. They're not a good enough operator to even hold the thing. They got to get exit, fire sale, which is what I'm going to buy. But anyway, that deal today is worth a little over $3 million. So we've got 1.1, 1.3 in it, and it's worth $3 million. So we 2.5, 3x that deal. The deal has $27,000 or $28,000 a month cash flow. So anyway, that's a small deal. And then we do big buildings too. So our largest deal was 100,000 square feet in Joplin, Missouri. That's still in lease up, but that will have more like 800 units. This one had under 80, so big difference in size there. And then my buddy that I'm kind of pitching some of his deals right now with him, and I'm going to go collaborate, sponsor these deals with him. He does very large deals. So the one that we're primarily raising for right now is in Phoenix, 975 units. Again, long-term hold, similar structure, money out to you guys first, and then we get paid. Obviously, no cash flow the first 2 years because it's a development, it's in lease up. But then after that, all the cash flow out to you until you get your initial investment back. So that's usually how we structure them.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So it's a cash flow heavy underwriting, and you can potentially exit at various points of the hold time based on the market, right?
Yeah. So the big decision that comes around 4 or 5 years, you think you're going to either refinance and get all the initial investment back to everybody, and then you just hold. Or you may exit, but we don't actually underwrite to exit. We underwrite to refinance to create a full return of equity, and then we just hold. So we just great.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges of the market today. Right, I think we've talked a little bit here about interest rates, insurance, property taxes, things that have given our businesses a little bit of headaches. But I'd like for each of us to kind of talk about, hey, today, what's the biggest challenge I'm dealing with in my asset class? And, what should investors know about how we're managing going forward? So start with Cheerly.
Well, I guess the biggest issue we're having as an operator right now is just honestly being able to make deals pencil. As we discussed earlier, like it's, we don't have it, obviously we don't want our tenants' expenses to go up because that's less rent they can pay overall, but it's not really something we have to deal with too much. There's just a big disconnect in the market with, getting debt when, the banks are the ones making a lot of the money right now. So we all talk about doing notes, we're doing a lot of lending down too. And the banks are making most of the money. So we've been really trying to target a seller that has an asset, single tenant asset, probably under market rent by more than 50-60% because it's at least the same guy forever, and where we can come in and get an owner financing structure with them, and we're usually bringing 35-40% equity down, so it's a real owner finance offer to this guy, and usually we can we're kind of offsetting the cash flow he was getting now into a note payment. And, we have the ability to market the rent or whatever's going to happen on the building. So that's been our magic trick lately. It's just we've got some really creative structures going too. Some of them need 6 months lease back or a year lease back. We got one deal we did in December, and they were like, "Hey, we need a 6 month lease back. We need you to pay our note off." They needed me to close in 17 days. It was a $5.5 million deal, and I was like, "Okay, but you got owner financing for me. I can't get a bank loan done." So they agreed to do that. Then it got kind of wonky with their bank, and then they're like, "Hey, if you put more down, we'll get more creative on the financing." And we got them to just we don't pay it for a full year on the project, and they were in it for 6 months. So we got kind of a runway at marketing time with that. So that's with the lease backs and stuff like that. That's what we're doing. No owner wants to pay you rent. They can't mentally get over paying you what the market rent is on the property. They want the market price to sell the property, but they do not want to pay you market rent when they lease it back. So we've just said, "Hey, look, owner finance it to us. We don't start making payments until you get out of the building, And so it gives us some runway. So we've done, I think, 6 of our last 7 deals we got owner financing on. So we just kind of put a template together showing them, hey, here's the down payment, here's the offset capital gains on a 5-year, term note, 25-year amortization, something like that. This is the additional amount of money we're going to pay you in interest. And, so it's kind of an optics thing. If we can get it in front of them optically, it'll make a lot of sense for them. And then we just get a lot better terms. We're getting, if we're doing conventional debt on a deal right now, we're getting 7.75. If we're getting owner financing, we're getting anywhere from 5% to 6.5%. So we underwrite our deals as if we have to get conventional debt, and then we make an owner finance offer on every single one of them.
That's pretty unique. And you mentioned the bid-ask spread. Hey, seller wants $10 million for their property. I can only pay $7 million. Well, the seller's going to be stubborn. But I can imagine that helps get things close to the finish line too, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you might be able to offer 9.5 or maybe even 10 if the terms are correct, right? And then the seller says, oh, I got my number.
Well, I can't offer him that much because I offered it with conventional financing, it didn't work, right? But what it does is I show them optically, it's like, hey, look, by 5 years I've paid you your price. You know what I mean? And essentially, I'm giving you the money for an asset that if you have to take it back, you know how to operate it. So it's kind of like, hey, if you had to take a piece of property back, wouldn't it be this one? Like you already know it, you know what's going to happen on it. So that's kind of the pitch we're trying to go for on these things, and it's seemingly known most of the time. So it's been nice not having to go get a bank loan. It's such a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Catherine, and for multifamily, I mean, obviously, challenges are there. But let's hear kind of from your perspective. What's the biggest thing you're dealing with today?
Well, we have the problem with, lending as well on multifamily, but really it's a people's business. We have, just like for say that property, we had a manager, a leasing agent, and then 2 outside guys, 2 maintenance guys. And right now it's hard to keep people. It's hard to afford people. I mean, people just want a lot more money right now. People just aren't, at the end of the day, it's hard to manage people. So that's one of the biggest challenges. It sounds like a lot of people in this don't have to deal with people like multifamily. But another thing is, like we touched on, a lot of the expenses are going up. Insurance, payroll, just items, just like little, I mean, you fix so many things, light fixtures are going up. I mean, so everything that you have to remodel a unit with or just do turns is going up, carpet, flooring. So there's actually kind of a lot of challenges. And then it's hard to make things work until right now. So like I was saying earlier, we're still being super active in the market. We're still trying to pencil all the deals. They're not really penciling. I think we need to do a little bit more creative finance, like he's talking about, to make things pencil. But that's the biggest challenge. Just this.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, kind of what you're saying is it's almost like the market is its own equilibrium chain. It's like, okay, we've enjoyed 10-15% rent bumps for the past 10 years. I mean, it's been atrocious. Like a $1,500 a month apartment today was renting for like $800 a month, maybe 7 years ago, right? And so it's catching up to the landlord, right? Now the landlord had great years, and now the equilibrium's resetting itself. And I think Jeremy made this point earlier. A seller that needs to sell because he didn't plan for that financially with their balance sheet. There's a bunch of buyers that are ready to chew that property up and take it through the next month. So,
one of the things, in single family, you can have a calm. And if you have it like a flip house, if you have a flip house out and someone else has a house and they're doing a fire sale, well, that's your comp. So then all of a sudden your property is going to be less. I always thought that wasn't really as big a deal on multifamily. But right now, like he was saying, people are getting a lot of concessions right now because they're at in the 80s of occupancy.
concessions media brand can like come live in my apartment for 2 months for free.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we're seeing that a lot too. So our income's dropping a little bit because you are getting stuff away for a cheaper price right now to get people in the door and to stay.
All right, Emily, what's the biggest challenge on the note side?
So the notes is interesting because one of the challenges is just educating people about the option, because I think it's a lesser known about option. And the second one is that in notes, which different from real estate, there are no tax advantages. And so when you invest in multifamily or industrial or self-storage, there may be some tax advantages available to you. Whereas when you invest in notes, you make interest. And unless you're investing in your retirement account, your self-directed retirement account, you will owe tax on that interest. And so that lends itself to most of our investors are using their retirement accounts to invest in notes, because if it's a Roth account, they won't have to pay taxes forever on that interest that they make, and if it's a traditional account, then they have deferred the taxes that they'll pay. But that doesn't mean we don't have cash investors. It's just something that
we want to make, people need to know about that it's not a depreciating asset. It is a interest earning asset. And so that's just one of the challenges that we have in getting the word out and educating people that these options are out there as well.
All right, Jonah, talk to me about what you're dealing with today, kind of in your business that's keeping you up at night.
Keeping me up at night.
You only have walls and there's no tenants. So.
Insurance, taxes, all those things are real. We saw probably 150% increase in insurance last year. It's hard to underwrite for something like that. Very disappointing, obviously. But thankfully, these are very cash flowing assets, so they can withstand some of those things. One of the things that's been really challenging is how the industry is changing. So because it's getting more and more institutionalized, we're now competing with REITs who have a lot of data and a lot of information that they can use to concession and price gouge their way into a market. So what ends up happening is it's actually it's both a science and an art of revenue management. Revenue management is all sorts of really cold. It is a overall, I would say, a net positive that this is the way it works, but it's a challenge if you're not willing to adapt to the new way of doing it. The reason it's a positive is I can raise rent every month if I want, by as much as I want to. But obviously, we're not going to do that. That would create some pretty angry tenants if you were doubling the rent every month. What you do instead is a very strategic, data-driven revenue management process. Most markets that I go to are small enough I'm not competing with Outlook or CubeSmart or Extra. But if you're in a market with Extra, let's say a 10 by 10 is renting for $120, or Dallas might be $155. Let's say $150, right? So you got $1.50. Well, that's not $1.50 rent, but you know what I mean. $150 a month, but they're pricing their units on move-in at $8. And they're going to use revenue management, bring price increases, pretty consistent price increases to get back to a number they want for a debt where they want to achieve the year. So that means you're going to go $80 a month, probably $190 within a 12 or 13 month period. That's dramatic, but they're playing the game and they have enough data to know when people are going to move out, when their uncle leave, how many they can let leave before they're actually losing money. We thankfully are starting to get enough data by actually co-oping is not words, but joining a co-op of other operators who are sharing some of that data and using it to create revenue management tools. And so we're doing the same thing, and we can actually compete with them, but most mom and pops cannot. And so you'll see all the deals out there are the ones where the mom and pops haven't raised rents in 6 months and don't know what they're doing. It was great for us, but really sad for them because they're really the breaks to that. But this is it's a fun time. It's an opportunity time, but you have to be willing to adapt. My guess, for the record, is that eventually it will result in a class action lawsuit against one of the REITs. That will change. But right now, it's pretty dramatic. I mean, you can literally, I've seen rates triple in a 12, 14 month period. It makes your eventual expiry rates, which is just insane. That's through us, but that's how it works with it. So it's very different than it.
And I get it. It's like, hey, my stuff's there. I'm like going and moving, and now it's another $10 a month. It's okay, you know.
Yeah.
And the next month's another $10. That's not that big.
It's a nuisance.
Yeah.
Nuisance race.
News, yeah, exactly. It's like cable companies, right? It's like these. Wow, that's great. I mean, it's interesting to know that in different asset classes we go through kind of similar things. I mean, concessions. What you're talking about is very simple, right? So, all right, let's pretend like I'm a brand new passive investor. Let's say I've made the decision to take some money out of my brokerage account, or maybe I've got some retirement funds, and I want to dive into real estate investing in the asset classes you guys are in. What type of advice would you give a passive investor, going into their first year?
Well, I think you kind of mentioned this at the very beginning, but I think it's the jockey, not the horse as much. So I think it's, do they have the skills on the wall to do this deal? I think you need to understand what this structure is going to look like too. If you don't understand how waterfalls work, then you need to understand that because you need to understand what your real net to use is going to be. And I think the biggest thing to me is, do they have money at the deal? I see a lot of, we fund a lot of sponsors now. And, I see some of these decks come around and I'm like, oh, we don't put any money in. Okay, that pass, so that's a pretty easy one for me. So, but I think just as long as they got track record, and I think the big thing is how do they report, and what's their transparency? Because there's nothing worse than being in a deal and you got no clue what's going on. So I think that's a big question to ask them to understand. And then ask them when you're going to get your K1. That's the most irritating thing too, is when you're begging for a K1 and you can't get it. So I think that's a big thing for me. So
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, most of them. That's good.
Took all my
Yeah,
answers.
it's
Oh, yeah.
No, dude.
No, I would, all decks are different. And once you know what you're looking at, you see things that I think most people, for the naked eye or for the beginner, wouldn't notice. And so if you're interested in investing, I would say all the things he said is track record, is the jockeying on the horse. But I would also get a second opinion for maybe somebody that's seen a few decks that have done this before, because I've seen a lot of people that it's a lot of fees that are insane, that it's too much, but a lot of new investors maybe don't know that that's a little bit more than normal. Also, I see some other things where they're over raising to then return money to people that they just raised extra money, and if for the naked eye you wouldn't maybe have seen that. So I would just get a second opinion basically from somebody that has looked at these decks before. Is one of the big things out of staying.
And it's very great about us actually. And I'm like,
Yeah. I'm going to echo it's the who, a lot of it's the who. I would invest with anybody up here. But out of the 18 deals we've done, we invested in one with a group that didn't know what they were doing. And that's the only one that we lost money on. And so 1 out of 18, not bad, but we won't make that mistake again. And so it is about who's running it. Do they have the experience? Do they have skin in the game? The other thing that I would say is it has to meet your needs too. And there are some different criteria that you should have. What kind of timeline are you looking at? Are you looking at, do you need this money back in 2 to 3 years? Can it be put aside for 5 years? Can it be put aside for 10 years? What is your preferred time frame? And then what, do you need cash flow or do you want growth? Because sometimes you can get both, but you really got to understand, like if this money that you're putting into an investment, if it's $50,000, if you need that money to cash flow, then you should be looking at the year-over-year cash flow projections. And again, they're just projections, but I think it was mentioned like there were 2 years that were development years, and so those don't cash flow, but after that it will. Well, does that meet your needs as the investor? And everybody's different, and each money that you have, each bucket of money can be different. Retirement accounts, maybe it doesn't need to cash flow. Maybe you can put it aside for 5 to 10 years and it doesn't matter. But then there may be other funds that you say, no, I need this back because next year I'm gonna, buy a house, or my kids are going to college in 2 years and I need this money back in 2 years. So just understand your needs and make sure it matches what the deal structure is. Yeah, Tina.
So, on the deal that you lost money on, is that something where they just didn't do the breadcrumbs and the house didn't sell for as much? And then how does that work? Like, let's say the one that you invested $30,000 in, whenever, if, let's say, they default on that, and I guess the 3 investors get together, so if it's an own market, and what are the 2?
Yep. Let me clarify. The one we lost money on was actually in the multifamily space.
Okay.
So it was like a group deal. We haven't had any foreclosures. We haven't had to take any of our private loans back. So thanks for clarifying.
The one thing I'll echo on the jockey, not the horse thing, is also make sure you know the sponsor, at least by proxy. And I feel like we've talked about, do they have the capacity to do it? Do they have money in the deal? Do they have the, are they, do they have the track record to do it? But also, what's their character? Are they good people? Because a lot of the people that I've seen where the deals went bad the person at the top of the sponsor tree was the reason the deal didn't go well. They made some poor decisions, or they made some fraudulent decisions. So really pay attention to who you're investing with. And I think that's a really big piece. On the waterfall thing, there's different types. Like if you want to learn it, go learn it. Really valuable to know. But then there's also different deals where maybe the waterfalls aren't so complicated, right? There's a pref and a split, and that's it, or something.
And by waterfall, it means how the investors get paid versus the operators.
Yeah, and some of them are complicated, believe me. I've done some complicated ones. I've seen some very, very complicated ones where the math requires, a CPA to figure it out. Some waterfalls get really tricky, especially in building Excel. Like it seems easy until you try to build it. The other thing is I would pay attention if you're looking for cash flow. Really read the docs. Is the pref accruing or is it paid out? Like our first deal, we offered an A-pref, right? And so we are giving an A-pref to everybody. They haven't received a penny yet. It's been 2.5 years. And the reason for that is the referral development deals, and they don't cash flow yet. I wasn't guaranteeing an 8% coupon every year. I was guaranteed that they would get it when there was cash flow to pay it. And somehow, no matter how many times you say it, somebody will not get that. So really pay attention. What do you need to be cash flow? Or are you okay just putting your money in, letting it accrue, letting it grow, getting it back, either a refinance or a sale, or when the properties have to do something. I think those are all the important pieces.
Yeah, I think Jonah touched on some. You said the word capacity to do the deal, right? I think that can take on various definitions. I've learned the past couple of years that means balance sheet, right? And now I've kind of got a hard rule that if I'm going to invest with an operator, they need to have, they or their companies have a balance sheet, equipped enough to handle the rainy day, because there's going to be a tough project, there's going to be a tough property. That can be tough on people getting into the business, but people getting into the business should work with more experienced operators as an apprentice, right, to get their experience. So, yeah, I think you would hit on.
If you don't mind, let me say on that. So when I said capacity, I was actually thinking like
Ability to do the
ability and a team size and number of heads that are going together to make this thing happen. But you're absolutely right. Capacity balance sheet wise too. So for example, my buddy I'm doing this deal with, he, I don't know if you want me to say this or not, I'm just going to throw it out there. He had a year where the assets did perform as well as expected, truly market driven, no fault of the operator, but he had it on his balance sheet and he was willing to really forego his fees that year. It's like, I will take a fee. Now, was he required to do that? No. Did anyone ask him to do that? No, he just chose to do that, which I think is incredible. I wouldn't have even had the capacity to just do something like that. We're talking about $1 billion for the fees that should have been his that he left in the deal. Not many people will do that, but to even have the capacity to make a decision like that, that's where the balance sheet really comes in.
There you go. And if you've got the balance sheet to make that decision, great. Yeah, I love it. All right. So we've got a little bit of time left. I'd like to know, for folks who are interested in doing business with y'all, what is the minimum investment that you would have to make in a deal? Like, what would I have to bring to the table to just participate with?
Start this.
Okay, I'll start. I think most of the deals we put together are $100,000 minimum investment. There may be exceptions here and there, but $100,000 coming down. Okay.
With the private lending, it's $50,000 is minimum.
We usually do 75, but we've done exceptions as well.
So we don't really do deal by deal stuff anymore. We're kind of more programmatic. So what we do is we kind of sit down with you and go, okay, look, 250,000, we'll put you in the next 5 deals for 50. So it's kind of more of a discussion on where you're at, and then we also have structured finance fund that's a half a million. Okay, so, but yeah, on our side, it's kind of more like, let's have a discussion. How many deals do you want to go into, and then let's break it out into the next however many upcoming deals. So,
yeah, I think that's a great point too, because you're almost doing a force function of diversification, right? It's like, hey, don't put all your $250,000 into this one deal that I'm doing, because it might only be a 1.5x, not a 2x, right?
Yeah, they're not all, those, like I said, those are all the stars up there, right? So, but the thing about syndicators, right? Ask them if they ever lost on a deal, and then you were talking about the sponsor. Google their name. There's so much that can just come up in there. I saw a bunch of people putting the money in this one guy. This guy literally launched his SEC license for funneling money to a Ponzi scheme. He's out here raising money again. If you just Google his name, it's all up.
Having sex is healthy.
Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, just Google her name. But yeah, that's yeah. You know, if you're getting into somebody, so ours is kind of like a fund structure through programmatic, but like I don't have a fund on that side. So
It's more like, hey, I'm interested in the industrial space. I've got this type of investment funds. Let's sit down and kind of see how big that.
Yeah, that's good.
And let's talk a little bit about how folks can get in touch with you.
Our website's matador.net. You know, so being over anyways on social media with JD Madcap. But you know, we just you know, so if you reach out to us or are interested, we will send you our deck with all of our assets with all of their returns on them today. We send you a video to kind of watch to understand what we do and how we do it. And at that point, if you're interested in talking more, then we just jump on call or something like that. We'll see.
Kyrie?
And yeah, my email is up there. You can also find us at highfiveandmultifamily.com. And yeah, we're always willing to talk to people, you know, and just see if it's kind of what we do is like Emily was saying, was kind of what you're looking for as far as like cash flow and timeline. But yeah, just email me if you're interested, and we can jump on a call and get to know each other better.
Similar, feel free to email me. I can send you a calendar link. We can do a one-on-one phone call and talk more about the different note options that we have. And then our website is linked here. It's AE, like invest.net.
Same, other email there. If you would like to know more information about what we're currently raising on, I did bring some information on our current 2 or 3 different deals good. One fund, a couple of syndications, as well as historical phonics, since I did have a version of that. I have a whole deck of historical for what we can do. So,
Great. Okay. We time for Q&A.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do some Q&A. What do we got?
Covered it all.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask on the question asked before. Let's say that something happens with the house. You know, somebody gets in and is more damage than they thought. It's gonna cost more than they thought. And, you know, you've already invested in let's say your shares or investors. How does that work? If you're get bounced back or he?
So, good question. So, in the promissory note space, like let's use that example at Birmingham. If we had to take back that house as a lender and I couldn't resell it for 182, that's one of the reasons why Adam and I put some of our money into the deals. So if we could only sell it for 162, we'd be the one taking care of that. When we flipped houses and had private lenders, out of the 25 houses we flipped, the one lost money, but the private lenders still got paid back. They still got all their money back. So that's kind of the mentality that we have. Adam mentioned strength and balance sheet. We've got the assets to help cover it, so we would never want one of our investors to lose out.
So what if there are like,
I think your question is, what's the structure of the promissory note versus the home, right? So who gets the home out of the 3 investors if there is a foreclosure, right?
right?
So yeah, A&E, like our company would manage, we are the lender. So we essentially would be responsible for going through the foreclosure process. And then the way it works is it is a promissory note to the investor. So it is a promise to pay that investor back after, say, 13 months.
But if you're an investor also,
Well, so we put in the 30,000 to make up for the balance.
Right.
But there isn't a promissory note to us necessarily.
I guess, and maybe I don't know if I'm going to talk to enough, but I mean, I guess what I'm asking you, maybe understand, is if 3 of y'all have put in money and then y'all are getting paid back and the house goes back to y'all, and maybe it's like, you know, we can just put it on the market or we can, do y'all 3 decide?
No, we would be the one making that decision.
So why do you make it because they,
So the promissory note, this is a great question. The promissory note is not necessarily linked to a specific property because I don't always have the opportunity before I get the funds. So
What the promissory note is literally, it's a promise to pay from our company to your entity.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily say 1213 Warwick Street in Birmingham.
So it's not three people and giving money to this one guy.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
through you.
Mhm. Yeah, we're managing the project. We are the lender. We'll be the decision makers in terms of if there's a foreclosure. We would handle the foreclosure. Our responsibility to our investors is to make sure they get their money back in 13 months with interest.
Was.
Thank you. Don't look at the sheet, the slide you had there, the percent paid into your investment. Because you do $50,000, you say the money that you're going to pay back to the investor is 7%, they do less than 100,000. 8%, that's what the investor gets back.
Yes.
And in your split, it was probably 15% or something.
Yep. Well, usually.
Because it's interesting to you to have investors who are looking for money, not the ones that have the money, and they're actually looking for a long-term note to buy properties and have private investors. You understand my question?
Let me ask it. Yeah, let me ask it. So, I'm a home flipper. I've asked you for a private loan. Like, why would I need your money? Isn't it interesting?
You're asking about more longer term notes.
No, I'm asking, as investors who are foreign investors, it's hard for them to get loans here, but they are people with very good jobs and, very stable people. They want to buy properties in the US, but they can't get loans from the bank. So what they're looking, they're looking for seller financing, but the sellers so many deals of seller financing. So the question is, if we find them a house that they want to keep for long-term, rent, would you have notes? Would you like to take the note on those properties?
So I actually, let me connect you with another gentleman. He does long-term owner finance notes he kind of acts as that owner finance lender, but he doesn't have to own the house. And so let me connect you with him. Our model is more short-term.
And so the same question about flips. I'll include that.
Yeah, if there's a flip,
What's your criteria for the market?
if you came to me and you said, I got a flip,
Yeah.
and then, it's usually 12% with 2 points, and but it depends on the experience level. I know you're a very experienced flipper.
It's not for me.
So, right, right. And so that would just be a conversation we would have for them and see if we
Just be
can.
like hard money.
Yeah, yep. It's just like, and like I said, yep. It is, yep, it's private lending. Yeah, private money lending. Any other questions as we wrap up today?
Okay.
All right. Well, let's give all these guys a round of applause. That was great. I learned a lot, so thank you guys. I really do.
Yep. And like I said, be on the lookout. We'll pick back up towards the end of the summer with more investor clubs once a month. And like I said, this is open to clients, other agents, pretty much the public. So if you have somebody that you think needs to be in here that wants to build their wealth, we encourage you to invite them. And I want to thank the panelists for being here today. And these are all people who I trust. And it is an honor to be able to share that with you and help build wealth together. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Thank you.